Hello everyone, our topic for this lecture video is all about basic concepts of quantitative genetics, and let's break these concepts down into simpler and more understandable parts. So let's get started. For our outline, we will be covering first the definition of quantitative genetics. Second is some examples of quantitative traits. Let's discuss also the role of genetics and environment in shaping quantitative traits. Number 4, let's recognize the importance of quantitative genetics in animal breeding and in general agriculture. Okay, so I have here a quick question. This one, have you ever wondered why animals even of the same breed can vary so much in size, weight, or milk production? Or have you ever noticed how animals, even those from the same breed, variety or strain can vary so much or differ so much in terms of their phenotypes or characteristics? For example, think about two cows that are of the same breed. They are raised on different farms. One might grow larger, produce more milk, or gain weight faster than the other, even though they come from the same genetic background. Or, you can also consider a litter of piglets. Some may grow faster, while others remain smaller despite having the same parents. And this variation is not just random. It's a fascinating result of how genetics and the environment interact. And understanding why these differences occur is what makes quantitative genetics so interesting and essential in animal breeding. It helps us explore why animals differ even when they share the same genes, and how we can use that knowledge to improve traits like growth rate, milk production, egg production, litter size, and overall performance. So what exactly is quantitative genetics? Quantitative genetics is the study of traits that show continuous variation and are influenced by multiple genes and environmental factors. So what is continuous variation? When we say continuous variation, this means that traits don't just fit neatly into either or categories. Instead, they fall along a spectrum. Unlike traits governed by a single gene, which we call qualitative traits such as flower color, being either purple or white, quantitative traits can vary across a wide range. Think about characteristics like height, weight, milk production, egg production, or litter size. These traits show a wide range of measurements, a wide range of phenotypes. So for height, for example, you can be 5'2", 5'3", or 157.1 centimeters, 160 centimeters. You can weigh 60 kilograms, 61 kilograms, 60.5 kilograms. For egg production, you can have 50% egg production, 55% egg production, 95% egg production. So, for quantitative traits, the phenotypes fall along a spectrum, a broad spectrum. So it can take on a continuum or a spectrum or a wide range of values. So that is the difference between qualitative and quantitative traits. I repeat, for qualitative traits, it falls under either or categories. So you can either be this flower can either be purple in color or white in color, or this flower can either be red or white, things like that. Or in the case of animals, the cattle can either be polled or horned. There is no such thing as half polled or half horned. So there are only distinct or discrete variables or distinct categories for qualitative traits. For quantitative traits, there is a continuum of values within a particular range. Okay, so much about continuous variations. Let's continue with quantitative traits in general. So as I recall, these traits don't have just one or two possible phenotypes or values. Instead, they can take on any value within a range. So that is what I was specifying earlier. Like for example, how some cows can produce 10 liters of milk a day. 12 liters of milk a day, or others might produce 20 or more liters of milk. So quantitative traits, what makes quantitative traits even more fascinating is that they are influenced by many different genes, which we call polygenes, right? And each of these genes, so I have to emphasize these different genes because each quantitative trait is not influenced by only one gene but rather many different genes, and each of these genes contributes a small effect to the overall phenotype or the overall expression of the phenotype for that particular trait. And because so many genes are involved in the expression of the phenotype for that particular trait, their combined influence results in a wide variety or a wide range of phenotypes. And this concept is now known as what we call polygenic inheritance. So poly coming from the term multiple or many, genic referring to genes. But that's not the whole picture because these traits are also shaped by, of course, environmental factors such as nutrition, climate, living conditions, space allowance, space requirements, health, and the overall management practices. So when we say environmental factors, these are the non-genetic factors influencing the phenotypic expression of quantitative traits. So that is the role of genetics and the environment in shaping quantitative traits. So genetics is the blueprint. So with that, genetics is the blueprint for quantitative traits, and I would like to mention this very important concept. Quantitative traits are governed by additive type of gene action. What does this mean? So this means that the more favorable genes an animal has, the better the phenotype will be, because each individual gene will add, or the effect of each individual gene will add so as to produce that particular phenotype. So I repeat, the more favorable genes an animal has, the better the phenotype will be. Or in other words, the more pronounced the trait will be. So for example, if a cow inherits many genes that contribute to milk yield or milk production, the overall milk production will of course be higher. Again, however, genetics is not the whole story. The environment also plays a huge role in this expression of phenotype for quantitative traits. Environment is the modifier of the genetic potential. Environment refers to the non-genetic factors or the external factors affecting the expression of the quantitative traits. So, what are the environmental factors? I am just repeating what I mentioned earlier, and let's expand that. So, environmental factors refer to nutrition, climate, climatic conditions, housing, and so on. All the management practices that we employ in our animal farm or livestock farm. So when we are referring to nutrition, of course, proper feeding can make a massive or huge difference. For instance, a pig with excellent growth genetics won't reach its potential on poor quality feed. Obviously, right? When you feed a pig, say for example, that we expect to have better genetics, we cannot produce that better phenotype if we do not provide favorable environment or appropriate environment. In this case, proper nutrition or proper feeding, right amount of feed, right kind of feed, right timing of feeding, and so on. Another example for climate and housing. Environmental conditions such as temperature, humidity, living space, space requirements, space allowance also affect how genes are expressed. So, if you do not provide proper housing to the animal, say for example, a heat-stressed cow might produce lesser milk yield, lesser milk production, even if that the gene for milk production is high, or says that the production or the trait should have better phenotype. So even if the breed is excellent or has excellent genetics, or the animal has excellent genetics, if you do not provide proper housing conditions or requirements, that will not express its full genetic potential. Another is in the case of health management. So if the animal is battling diseases or has parasitic infections, of course, it's obvious that it will not perform to its genetic potential since its energy is now diverted to fighting off the disease or the illness. So the bottom line is genetics plus environment. All these together, they shape quantitative traits, the expression of the phenotypes for quantitative traits. Okay, so now, what is now the importance, after all the talks that I provided, what's now the importance of quantitative genetics? Quantitative genetics plays a crucial role, an important role in the field of animal breeding and agriculture, and understanding it provides us with several advantages. Number one is, of course, it helps us select the best animals for breeding based on their genetic potential. What does this mean? In any breeding program, our goal is to choose animals that have the best possible genetic traits to pass on to the next generation. So by understanding quantitative genetics, we can identify animals that possess desirable traits such as higher milk production, faster growth rates, or better disease resistance. So instead of relying on guesswork, we can use data and genetic information to select animals with the highest potential for these traits to ensure that the next generation will have improved characteristics. And what do we call this process? Of course, genetic selection. And let's remind ourselves that selection, or in particular selective breeding or artificial selection, is the main tool for achieving the goal of animal breeding, which is genetic improvement. Okay? Another advantage is it helps us optimize environmental conditions to ensure animals express their genetic potential fully. So, repeating what I've said earlier, even if an animal has excellent genetics, it will not reach its potential without the right environment. Okay? And third, it helps us improve productivity, efficiency, and profitability in animal production by, of course, making informed decisions about breeding and environment. Because at the end of the day, one of the main goals in animal production is to improve productivity and profitability. When we apply the principles of genetics or quantitative genetics, we can make more informed decisions about breeding and management. For instance, we can identify which animals are likely to produce the most milk, grow the fastest, or have the highest resistance to diseases, allowing us to breed them selectively. So we are just going on and on and on of these importance or advantages that quantitative genetics provides us in helping achieve the goal of animal breeding. So if we apply all this, we can improve or we can achieve the goal of animal breeding, and the secondary goal will now be achieved, which is of course to achieve profitability. So there you have it. Quantitative genetics helps us understand why animals differ in traits like size, weight, or milk production, even when they share the similar genetics. So it's a powerful tool that plays a huge role in animal breeding and agriculture. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in our next lecture video. Thank you very much, everyone.